Hi, my name's Tom Blake, and I am a listing specialist on the Homes Just For You team with RE/MAX Liberty out of Westminster, Massachusetts. That makes me a realtor, a licensed realtor, and I focus on predominantly selling homes, but I also represent select buyer clients. And I'm sitting here with Brianna Kelly, who is the broker owner of Total Mortgage. And we wanted to sit down on camera and have a conversation about today's market and what it takes to buy a home.
Absolutely.
And what it takes to and what clear expectations might be in selling your home and perhaps selling and buying another home.
Correct.
So we're just going to kind of go back and forth kind of naturally. We're not going to try to make this too fancy. So I'm going to start by simply asking Bree, where do you start if you are a first-time buyer or even an experienced buyer
Absolutely.
in this market? What do you do?
I highly recommend the first thing that you do is have a conversation with your loan officer. I would put an application in. I would see what your numbers look like. The biggest thing that you want to have is a conversation about budget. It's about assets. It's about what your credit score is. But more importantly, what do you feel comfortable paying for a monthly payment? Because right now, this market is very difficult. So you might be having to look at properties that you're thinking are outside of your budget, but that's what you need to do to be able to purchase a home right now. So you want to have a really solid understanding of what your financial situation looks like.
Okay, so we want to fully understand what our means are.
Correct.
Before we go searching for a home.
Right.
So I'm a buyer. I maybe can afford $400,000 for a house, right?
Right.
So what are you seeing? How difficult is it for a buyer to acquire a home
Right.
at this point? And two, why I'm approved to 400,000.
Right.
So what should I be looking for really?
In that situation, in this market, you'd be looking at properties that are priced at $350,000.
Why is that?
Well, right now what they're doing is people are paying over asking price. There is not a lot of inventory, so a lot of people are bidding on the same properties. I have some of my buyers that are actually calling in the same property, putting offers on. So if I'm having that issue, that means other loan offices are having that same conversation. So right now you have people that are willing to, the house is listed at $350,000 and they're go, you know something, I really want this house. I'm going to put an offer in for $375,000. So it has to do with what you're willing to pay in this market right now. And that's a much different conversation than the house is listed at $350,000. I'm going to put an offer in at $350,000 and there's no one else putting offers. A lot of those times you're in multiple offer situations.
Okay, so yeah, what I think Bree is saying here is that it's such a tough time for a buyer to acquire a property.
Absolutely.
So we're here in Leominster right now. We're at her office in Leominster, and to give you some idea of the market from a realtor perspective, right now in Leominster there's only 21 single-family homes for sale. That's it, right?
In all of Leominster.
In all of Leominster, In all of Massachusetts, there's about 4,000 homes for sale right now,
not a lot.
which is really, might sound like a lot when you're listening to this, if you're listening to this. And, to give some perspective, when the market crashed in 2008 into 2012, there was closer to 40,000 homes for sale.
Right.
And so, the goal of us talking on camera right now is to try to prepare you for what you're in for if you truly want to buy a house.
Yes.
That's our goal here. So, and I like thinking in numbers. That's,
Right.
My opinion is great, but
Facts are facts.
Facts are facts, right?
Facts are facts.
And so we're going to try to stick to the facts here. So there's 21 homes for sale.
Right.
In Leominster at the moment. If we were to look at the range of pricing for those, actually in real time it just went to 20. That means
Something
one of
just
those
came off the market.
just went under agreement in the time that we were on this call.
Yeah, right? You blinked.
We blinked and it's over.
And that's how quick it's moving.
Yes, that's how quick it's moving. So the first home that's for sale in Leominster is 15 Rustic Drive. And again, just to date this, and this is very date specific, and I think this is also important to understand. Any conversation that we have about the real estate market is going to change in about 3 months and maybe quicker.
True.
we'll be having these conversations ideally monthly to keep you abreast of different markets. And we'll look
Yes.
at Leominster this month, and maybe we'll look at, who knows, Templeton next month, or Fitchburg, or something local. But and feel free to request something. That's fine as well. We're happy to answer any and all questions if you want to call us, and we'll take care of that at the end of this. But the first thing that's available for sale is $350,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house with only 5 rooms. It's built in 1958, and it's 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet in
1,000
Leominster
square feet.
for $350,000, and that is the least expensive home on the market. It's been on the market for 2 days, and if I was to take a pot shot off at it, it'll be gone in a week.
Absolutely.
It'll be gone in a week. You know, so preparation for this market is huge, and Bree is where you start.
Yes.
So
one of the conversations I'm having with people right now too, because there's all these different types of financing. There's conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, and then you have some other products that fall underneath those same loan types that are FHA. That are mass housing and some other programs. One of the big important things to know is, okay, there's a misconception out there that you need 20% down for a conventional loan. That's not it. That's not the case. You can do as little as 3% down.
Really, I didn't know that.
3%.
Okay.
Mass housing has 100% financing, which that's much more difficult to qualify for because they still want to have you see assets in the bank.
Sure.
And then if you're buying your second home, it's usually, if you're not a first-time home buyer, it's 5% down. And in this market, a lot of the properties are a little bit more difficult because conventional financing is easier on the property condition than FHA is. But if you have a property that has, a newer property, doesn't really have any of those issues on FHA, there's a good chance that you are still in the running in that situation. Again, if you're a conventional loan and you go in at offer, but you're an FHA loan and you go in at $25,000 over, well, there's a good chance that you might be the stronger candidate in that situation. But it's very important to know the difference between the two products and what the pros and cons are, because that's something that you'd be looking at for an advantage or disadvantage in this market. The other thing to look at is appraisal gap. That's a big conversation that people are having right now.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. So meaning, okay, I'm willing to pay that house for $350,000, I'm going to pay $400,000 for that house. I really, really want this house. And if the appraisal comes in low, I'm going to pay $10,000 over what that appraisal came in at. Meaning, say that the appraisal only came in at $380,000. So, yeah, the buyer's not going to get their $400,000, but they're going to get their $390,000 because you're going to pay that $10,000 over that appraisal. That means you need to have an extra $10,000 into this transaction to be able to make that happen, to purchase that house. And we're seeing that a lot. So something to kind of consider.
Yeah, so what Bree just said, it is a huge thing to take into consideration. It really is. So just to reiterate here, so lots of people are going in understanding that $350,000 asking price for 15 Rustic Drive is the starting price, right?
Correct.
And that is the current expectation of the seller. All sellers right now truly believe that their house is worth that or more, right? Because they've had either they think it or their realtors coached them into thinking it, one of the two, right? So I'm on the sell side a lot. I talk to a lot of sellers, and they are in the power position right now. They absolutely are. They can ask more than what the property is worth, and they just might get it. I wouldn't personally recommend that. I don't think that's a great strategy. You don't want to ask too much. That's another conversation for another day. Currently, we're focusing on buyers. But people are throwing wild numbers at sellers right now.
They are.
They really are. And you need to be prepared to back that up. That's why you want to be with someone like a Bree here who truly understands your financial picture, who understands what your financial means truly are, and what's available to you.
Absolutely.
When she said appraisal gap coverage, so as a listing agent, I would put this $350,000 house on the market. I would assume, because it's $350,000 is an affordable number in this area. Now it used to be $200,000 to $300,000. Now it's $300,000 to $400,000.
Exactly.
That's affordable housing right now. If you can be effectively priced out of the market at this point if you can't afford a $300,000 house, and that's just the cold hard facts. and or you're buying a distressed property. So let's say you're qualified to 300 to 400, all right? And I apologize if I just hurt anybody's feelings, but again, we're sticking to the facts here.
Facts are facts. That's going to be your theme for this, I think.
Yeah. So I get 10 offers, right? I'm going to be looking at what those offers are, what the type of financing that person is, and whether they are actually able to afford that house. If I get a $370,000 all-cash offer with no contingencies, and I get a $380,000 offer from a person who is, their mortgage is 97% and highly, it really needs the appraisal to come in at 380, and I understand that this house may or may not appraise based on the comps. I'm going to go with a cash offer,
Yeah.
So, again, these are, please
It's
don't,
true.
don't think that just because you have an FHA or a VA loan that you're out of the running. You're not. That's not it. You just got to strategize correctly. You got to be looking at offering like an appraisal gap coverage. Hey, we understand this purchase price may not appraise, but we believe it might appraise at this number,
Right.
and we're willing to supply the difference, you save up that. So, sorry,
No,
keep talking,
I was going
right?
to say, but I think it's the same thing. That's also going to be a conversation that you need to have with yourself. Like, are you willing to part with an extra $10,000 to go purchase this house?
Yeah, that's a big conversation.
Now, did you talk to your lender about that? The other part of that is, too, if you are a 3% down buyer, there's a good chance you're going to put in multiple offers multiple times, and you're not going to win those offers. You have to be persistent in this market. Resilient. That's probably even a better word, because you get your heart broken a few times, and that's unfortunate. But again, you want to understand what you're getting into. And I've had people come to me, they do have some extra cash, and they're like, you know what, my tap out is this much above appraisal. That is it. That's what I'm willing to go to. And that's okay. That's okay.
That's what it should be, right?
And the other piece of that is you budget. You want to be having a conversation. What's your monthly out payment going to be? Okay, that's taxes, insurance, your payment, what have you. But what happens when you need to, furnish the property, heat the property?
Buy a snowblower.
Snow. But you're dealing with snow, you're dealing with lawn care, you're dealing with maintenance. What happens if your heating system goes? What happens if you have to do some capital improvements, your roof, your windows? You need those monies to be able to do that. And you also don't want to be necessarily house poor.
No, that's terrible.
Because then, all those vacations you normally go on, well, you're not doing that anymore. So you need to be having very realistic conversations with yourself, your realtor, and your partner, who was ever attached a loan with you. You need to be having real conversations, and I can't stress that enough.
That's incredibly good advice. It really is.
Wish more people would get that advice.
Yeah, you don't want to buy everything you can just barely afford.
No.
You don't, because house poor is terrible, and you are buying at the top of the market.
You are.
This is the top of the market. At some point, the houses, now, there's, contrary to popular opinion, there's no looming crash out there, okay?
Not
There's no
enough
looming
inventory for
crash.
that.
Unless there is some geopolitical event that we can't see coming that tanks the entire United States market in the Northeast, it looks like they're going to flatten, maybe ascend. Currently they're ascending, and or maybe correct by 2 to 5%. Worst case scenario, 10 over the next 3 to 5 years, and that's if we have an incredibly high interest rate for a sustained period of time.
Correct.
So based on simple supply and demand and inventory levels right now, we're not having a crash. No. Period. Just let's stop having that conversation right now. There's not going to correct.
Nope.
I also think it's important to understand we're not going to have 3% mortgages anymore. That's over. That's all. That was artificially low on purpose to prop up our economy. Right. It's over. The Fed is all about toning down the economy, not ramping it up. So, you need to, if you're thinking of buying, you also want to really consider the fact that you need to be able to afford this house on a sustainable level and not assume that it's going to come back to 3%.
Correct.
In 3 to 5 years, because it's most likely not going to. That's,
There's some market indications that it might come down some, but we're not going to be seeing 3%, 2%. Like, people are like, oh, it's going to come back. Listen, I would love to be wrong. I'd love for the rates to come down. I shouldn't say that because that also means that there's something not going fantastic with our economy.
I think that's true. I think that's true. We are in a strong economy right now, which is good.
So one of the other things is by the time that the supply and demand issue is worked out, there's a normal bell curve of the values coming up and down, right? So if you're going into a house that's your 10, 15-year plan house, normally by that time span, you are going to be still in a good equity position of where you were before, historically. But you can't go into a house thinking that, I'm going to be able to refinance, because that's not always the case. You can't go into houses thinking that, I'm going to buy it and be able to make money off of it in a couple of years. Also not necessarily a thing. But you want to make sure that you're making educated decisions. So again, if you're going into a house that you think you're going to be in there for the long haul, long term, houses appreciate. Houses are strong. Having a home is a strong asset. It's definitely something that you want to talk about and be strategic about.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's where you need ideally professional assistance, like a Bree. I'd like to think maybe me.
Yes.
But we care about your financial well-being.
Yes.
Money isn't everything, but not having it's lousy. So, we want to make sure that we're putting you that makes sense for you.
Correct.
We want to help you do something that's right for you.
Yeah. And everybody's situation's different, and that makes a big difference. And that's why each conversation can't be canned. It's going to be a conversation tailored to your needs, your wants, and also what is available to you. I mean, if someone's going to come in and having non-realistic conversations with you, not giving you facts, that is not fair to you. And sometimes it's not fair to the rest of the people that are attached to the transaction. I don't want someone putting an offer on a property. You find out what the payments are going to look like. They're like, I'm not paying that. And now the house is put back on the market, or, now you're in a position, you're like, no, I could lose deposit money. There's a lot of risk attached to that. You need to be going in with an educated mindset, which is really important.
And it takes a little time. It really takes a little time.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to talk about one thing so to back up statistically what we just talked about. So I said there's not going to be any market crash, right? And that sounds like it could be an opinion. And that she said you're going to have to overpay for your house right now, and that you're making somewhat of an emotional decision as opposed to like a shrewd financial decision,
This market, yep.
So to back up what we were just talking about there, I want to talk about the market trend in just Leominster for a second. Now, there's all kinds of statistics out there. There's all kinds of sensational stories. People say the market's up by 50% or down by 50%. They throw percentages around. Well, if we're talking about two houses, 50% is one, right? So let's not look at the percentages to some degree. And then there's other points where it does make sense to look at them. But the most important inventory level indicator to me is what's called the absorption rate. So there is a seller's market, a buyer's market, and a balanced market. And people are throwing that around like they know exactly what they're talking about right now. Oh, it's a buyer's market all of a sudden, and so on and so forth. Or it's a seller's market. So there's only one number that really matters. It's the absorption rate. So if I've got 100 houses and 20 houses sell per month in this market, I have 5 months worth of inventory. My absorption rate is 5. It's very simple. It's a simple calculation. So right now in Leominster, we have 20, not 21, 20 houses for sale. The months of inventory in Leominster right now is 0.76, very specifically. This comes from a platform called RPR. It's built off of the NAR platform, the National Association of Realtors platform, and it accesses MLS and accesses public records. We have less than 1 month's worth of inventory, which means if nothing else comes onto the market today, from here on out, in less than a month, everything will be gone. There'll be nothing for sale, period.
Correct.
That is a deep, deep, deep seller's market. A balanced market is 6 months worth of inventory. Okay?
Yep.
So we would need a lot more houses to come on. We would need at least 80 houses to come on for it to be a balanced market or into a buyer's market. This week, which is just not going to happen. Or it's unlikely. Yeah, I don't want to say not. I'm not going
it's
to say
unlikely.
not, but it's very unlikely.
I
So
say
let's
highly
call it
unlikely.
highly unlikely.
Yep.
So again, a buyer's market is 7 months worth of inventory or more. So really, you need to be prepared for the fact, like Bree said, that your heart's going to get broken a couple times.
Right.
That you're going to love this property and someone is going to outbid you, because there's still a really strong buyer's pool out there.
It is. There is.
There are people that can afford a 7% mortgage and have saved the money to do so.
Correct.
So we want to help you get in that position, so that you've saved the money that you need to, so that you understand the costs around it, so that you're in the best negotiating place possible for you to acquire that house that you've been wanting your family to have.
Right.
And that's my 2 cents for what it's worth on absorption rates.
Well, facts again.
Yeah.
So,
Bree, is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up this particular video?
probably the only other thing I would talk about is maybe seller concessions right now, which is another thing that people ask me about.
Yep, okay.
Right now, in a buyer's market, seller concessions are very common.
Okay.
And maybe if there was more inventory. So what that means is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, listen, I need my 5% down, whatever that number is, to purchase the house. But then there's closing costs and prepaids associated with the loan, depending on taxes, insurance, credit score, things like that. I mean, that could be $8,000 to $10,000 additional monies that you're going to need in order to make that transaction happen. So it's not just down payment, you have additional costs attached to it. There is a time in the market where I'd be like, listen, I will give you that house for $350. I'll give you $360 for the house, but I want $10,000 back towards closing costs and prepaids.
Yeah, we see that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which means the seller nets the $350, the buyer gets $10,000 towards closing costs and prepaids. The issue with that is, people are paying higher for the houses. That means the house needs to appraise for that to be able to get that seller concession back. That's the first part. It's also less competitive in this market when you've got someone that's coming in over asking, no contingencies, which means I don't have to sell my house. I don't need closing costs. I'm flexible with the closing date, maybe, depending if someone needs to find suitable housing. All of these factors are big conversations to be having with the lender.
They are.
Your agent.
They are.
You have to be having these conversations. So my point is, seller concessions right now, yes, seller concessions exist, but they're not happening right now. I'm not seeing seller concessions on any of my accepted offers right now. I want to make sure that's you're going with an education of understanding, like, you can't be doing that, or I wanted that house for $350 and asking for $340. That's not happening really
so
right
I'm
now.
going to completely back her up as a seller agent on that one. So if I see an offer come through, so we all know that we're pushing the boundaries of appraisal. We're already, when I'm listing a house, I'm listing it at what I think the appraisal value is, plus maybe a little bit more, because I understand that I can maybe push the value there. And I want to attract as many people as possible, because buyers are really educated right now. They understand what the value of a house is, and then they understand that's the starting point, and they're going to have to offer more. That's just kind of a generally accepted precept. So if I see an offer come through that's got a seller concession, that's subject to appraisal, because I know now if they put it in for that $350 house for $370, and they want a seller concession of $10,000, I know that if it doesn't appraise, that not only am I not getting the full appraisal value, I'm getting the full appraisal value minus that $10,000 concession, because that's how that works. I've agreed to pay that concession based on the appraisal. And if it's an FHA loan, it just tagged my property for 3 months on what the property is actually worth, and I've just had to state exactly how much it is, and now I've just boxed myself into getting a conventional loan, or I'm not selling it for more than that number.
Correct.
So there's all kinds of risks for a seller to accept something with a seller concession, and they don't have to. Right now, they just don't have to. There's just enough of a pool. So if you need a seller concession, and I'm going to be cold, hard, and true on this one, don't buy now. Save the money that you need, put it in the bank, and get ready to buy the house, as opposed to try to get in before you can.
Right.
And that, again, that falls into the opinion category. But as a fiduciary, to folks,
Yes.
that's what I would suggest.
Correct.
Is that an unfair statement?
No, it's not. It's not, and again, one of the things that I feel that we both do with our clients is we want to make sure that you're being treated as if friend or family, that we're giving you advice that we would tell someone else that we are friends with.
That's what we're doing here.
Because at the end of the day, we want you to come back and use us. We want you to refer us to future people, but we also live in the area. If you're in a situation where I'm going to bump into a Market Basket or Target or a Walmart or kids' baseball games, we're community people.
I don't want to put you in a home that you're miserable in and you wish you had never done it a year from now. Our goal is to help you build wealth, not break you, as that's trying to avoid the Herb Tarlick thing here. And if you have any idea what I just said, you're old, So you're
buying your third house. No, I'm just kidding.
So anyway, on that note, we thank you for listening. If you made it, all the way to the end of this video, that's fantastic. This is our first effort at video, but we're going to try to make this a monthly thing and see if we can share some input and some good value.
Keep the data updated.
Yeah. This is Brianna Kelly from Total Mortgage in Leominster. I'm Tom Blake. I am with Remax Liberty out of Westminster. Feel free to Google both of our names. That's how you'll find us.
Yes.
And thank you very much for listening.
Have a great day.
Bye now.